Hello and welcome to Faith and Honest Conversation. I'm Thomas Rowland and this is James Farrant. And we met as counsellors in training quite a few years ago now, James. And, and yeah, we're here to explore our own experiences and thoughts around our faith and faith and hopefully make it okay for you to have your own, whatever you might be going through. So James, last week we finished. I like that you called it beautiful. Something that I said. I enjoy that. Stroke my ego well.
Good. It's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, that's why we're here. Let's face it. If you can press the like button.
That's it. Like and subscribe. Put it done.
So about this idea of the opposite of sin being connection.
Yes.
To ourselves, to others, to God, to the world. And the impression I got was that kind of resonated with you and stuck with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I try to write, very much try, being the operative word here, to write every morning, doing something we call the morning pages, which is kind of like a spiritual practice that to help unlock your creativity. I do it maybe once a week. This week I did it twice. I'm on a roll. 2 days running as well. I even wrote about it being 2 days running. What an achievement that'd been. And in writing, I was reflecting on what we've spoken about and about how, really how much I struggle with the way the life is at the moment. Particularly things like I didn't write about this, but certainly there was like a theme or a thread of sort of capitalism and the sort of like almost mind-boggling stupidity of humanity in large groups. You know, like you'd think collectively we would pool all of our knowledge and pool all of our wisdom, but actually quite the opposite happens, and it kind of all sort of dissipates, and we become more, I suppose, primal and more black and white in our thinking, maybe. And I was writing a lot about that, and then kind of right towards the end, I realised, like, you know, the reflecting on God and reflecting on sort of people and just this realization that actually it's all about bringing back connection and connect. And so instead of like dividing people and putting people into camps and judging and all of that sort of stuff, it's about like trying to reconnect people with one another, with God, with nature, with themselves. And I've listened to a podcast that do you know Simon Amstel, the comedian? He's a comedian that he's still around at the moment, but he's talks about his experience trying a medicine called ayahuasca, which is used a lot in South America as it's like a hallucinogenic or a psychotropic drug that gives people, when they experience it, people quite frequently talk about experiencing God, experiencing deep connection with themselves, with nature, with others, and this sort of like really kind of resonated with what we'd be talking about. I was like, oh, that's like, it all kind of connects. And I don't know if like everybody needs to try ayahuasca to get there. Like, and I was kind of like ruminating on that a little bit and just thinking, well, I feel like I had that back in sort of like the throes of my Christianity, if you like, when I was in like the sort of like heyday of being an evangelical Christian, and so I wonder, like, have I lost that? Is that still there? Would it have dissipated anyway, regardless of whether I had stayed part of the church or not, or regardless of what had happened to like my faith and the development of my faith over time? So yeah, so it kind of has thrown up a lot of questions for me, really.
Mm,
But yeah,
mm.
I don't know if you relate to any of that, or if there's anything that sort of jumps out at you.
Yeah, there's loads jumping out, James, and I think it's, no, one thing that reminded, I mean, just very immediately, but it may not be the core, but we might circle back to it, is I was listening to a podcast by called This Jungian Life,
Oh yeah.
which I quite like, and apparently it was all about zombies, so apt
Great.
for this
Yeah.
point. And they were relating it to, I mean, one thing they related it to, like the archetype of zombies was to kind of en masse culture. And apparently Jung had a very saw a lot of darkness in the masses and mass psychology, and said something like a mass goes to the lowest common denominator. And linking that to zombies, and then being very, very primal and just kind of physical, hungry, but no consciousness. So
and
all
with no
unconscious
morality. Yeah, it's like almost amoral, or like without a soul, essentially.
Yeah. So that was there, and yeah, I was thinking hallucinogenic drugs. That could be that's quite out there for a previously evangelical Christian, as we both are. So but that argument, well, maybe the argument I may have heard at some point of these states are imagined or created and not real, like they're not trustworthy because of it. So I was imagining that sort of argument against all worries that people can have, and things. And I think I'm in a place that I'm not ready to try it.
Yes, yeah, sure.
I mean, I say that I have no easy access, so I'd have to do a lot of work to it. And if I had easy access,
to Peru or somewhere like this,
that's it.
Experience it.
But I am much more open to that, and it not necessarily being a distorted view of reality that we have. That there could be something in that is clarifying, or something. And that idea. But where I landed, so all of that was going on, and we can circle back to things, but where I landed was that in my head, that sort of experience is kind of linked in my head to kind of mystical experiences. And my understanding of that is a real sense that we are all already interconnected. That we're all already united in some way, or connected, and that being a realization of the nature of the universe, and us in it, and that feels a little bit different from the mass culture is really disconnected, and I need to do something about it, or it should be something else. Like there feels a discrepancy between that, and I think where I get to is that, what am I saying? Maybe we don't have to do so much about it. I mean, that's a what am I saying? Like, maybe in my maybe I can recognize I'm connected to these people without without it being my job to change consumerism or
Right.
everything.
Yeah. So sort of like taking away some of the responsibility to have like to enact a change on the world and society.
Yeah, and there feels something about
Mm.
in enacting a change, I'm perpetuating the disconnection.
Okay. Yeah. 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 I hear you. Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
I don't know, like, um, duh, 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 duh. And as I say this, I'm kind of thinking, yes, but change needs to happen. You know, there's that bit of me that isn't like, well, can we just sit silent and let it go? And I'm also wary of this sort of just having a different sort of evangelicalism,
Mm.
where
Yes.
the focus isn't on, you know, I think of evangelicalism and I think of action.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
action and knowledge
And
is,
you're going out and you're telling people,
yeah,
regardless of what it is, you're trying to encourage people to either look into something or change the way they are, or change what they believe, or change what they do based on what you're telling them. Yeah.
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 And that action could be evangelism or it could be social action. So I think
Yeah.
it's similar, and
Mm.
and yeah, I think when you've been raised in that, I'll own it, when I having been raised in that, it's very easy to just think, oh, I've still got to do something. It's just something slightly different I've got to do. And it's just another form of evangelicalism.
Yeah.
And you know, maybe God's already doing something.
Yeah.
Maybe actually we're all more interconnected, and you know, me realizing that, or me realizing that interconnection is in itself healing, without me having to do something to
And get involved, essentially. Yeah.
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 Is that making sense? I
Yeah,
don't know.
that is. I think I'm. It's taken me a little while to catch on, but I think what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the it's almost like being evangelical can be a problem, because then that gets in the way of whatever God is doing. Is that possible, or have I jumped
Yeah,
a step?
no, I like it. Say it again. Being evangelical
Evangelical is the problem because that gets in the way of whatever God is doing, or can get in the
could
way.
be, yeah,
Yeah.
could be, and I guess it depends how you define evangelical and all
Yeah.
that sort of thing, and yeah, and I guess those, but yeah, I guess so, that there's something about trying to do stuff that is just perpetuating the, well, let's call it sin in this light of sin as disconnection.
Yeah, that's sort of like the disconnection between people. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's really that. Maybe that is what I'm saying. I would never put it in those terms, James. And I need a moment to reflect on if I think that's
Yeah.
true. You know,
Yeah.
like,
Take your time. Take your time.
and yeah, like there's a. I'm gonna maybe just go back on what I've just
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'll offer. I'll call it a counterbalance. Why not?
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Sounds measured.
Like there is, I think there is something about like human action. I think I want to hold that there's something like human action can be a participation in what God is doing.
Yes. Yeah.
I guess so. It's not that action in itself shouldn't happen. Like it's not. It's that there's something. Humans are part of that. Are part of God's work. I think I hold that.
Yeah.
So it's like what distinguishes the two, I guess, is what's going on in my
Sure.
head. Like,
Sure.
um,
I think that, like, again, just sort of to throw out some ideas, that again, having grown up in like an evangelical environment, and then having my faith develop in an evangelical environment, it feels like there's a lot of pressure to go out and tell people and go out and make more disciples and go out and like encourage people or convert people to Christianity, and that's what is like, that's what we're here for as Christians. That's the purpose of our, why God has, called us all together. Right now, go and tell everybody. And there was always this thing at the end of sermons like, and go and tell. And I'm just like, why though? A lot in my head, it was very like really jarring, sort of encouragement, I suppose, from like the church leadership perspective that I can get my head around, and I think that can almost overshadow or overcloud other really good works and other things that are really of God, and ways of loving people and ways of just showing love, and that actually God is calling us to love, not to convert, and that the conversion isn't really the important thing, but that's like what we put a load of emphasis on. And I think the reason for that, and I'm just this is making links in my head, that it's because that connects to the penal substitution side of things, which is if you're not saved, you're going to hell. And this whole sort of you're in or you're out kind of view of God. And that's like, so, well, it's imperative that we go and tell people and get them to come and join us, because otherwise they're going to die. And that's it. They're dead forever, or they're tortured, or whatever horrible kind of thing we've worked out is how God is and what God is like in our odd theology. And it kind of, it's funny, it just jumped out at me then. Like I remember coming across a couple of street preachers in Plymouth, and they had like a megaphone, and they were a fairly old couple, and it was just the two of them. And I went over just because I was in the midst of my sort of like Christian youth, if you like, not as a young person, but like a young Christian. And I'd gone over because I was like super excited about anything like vaguely spiritual or Christian or anything like this. And I went over to chat to the lady because her husband was preaching, and I talked to her a little bit about it. It's funny, it just coming back to me. There's not like the full conversation, but I remember her saying what struck me was she said that it doesn't matter if anybody responds or not. We just have to make sure that people have heard, and then it's up to them if they respond. If they don't, then they're obviously going to go to hell. And like, I was really struck by, that's not that. I don't like that at all. And I mean, I'd gone over because like I find street preachers very antagonistic anyway, and I don't like it. But equally, from a real Christian point of view, I was like, well, I'm curious, why? What is it? Don't I like that just because like it embarrasses me, or is it just something in me? And it even then, like what she said, struck a nerve with me and made me go, oh, I don't like that. I don't know why I don't like that, but I really don't like that. That doesn't feel right. But yeah, sorry, that was a weird old tangent. But no, I think that's where like evangelical kind of falls into that category for me, of like, it's kind of fear driven. And I do
think that there's a whole spectrum, or there's a whole differences in depth maybe
Yeah.
in evangelicalism and things. So yes, but I think there is that also that tendency towards fear.
Yeah.
And I think a real different worldview than the evangelical is that mystical experience, or of us all being interconnected. Like you said something about being in or out, and that being our view of God, and it's kind of like the mystical experience is that all things are in God. And the evangelical isn't that. I think most evangelicals would agree with that, like that God isn't. Some people are outside of God, or they will be one day.
Yes. I think it's all sort of like to put an extremely theological term on it, Calvinistic, maybe, is that the correct term? Calvinism, I don't know,
quite possibly.
Where you've got like a real split. These people are saved, these people are not, these people are going to hell, and these people are going to heaven.
And you can kind of see from that point of view, evangelism makes a lot of sense. Why would you not tell people they're going to hell? And I think what you were saying earlier, what struck me a lot was you have to go out, and it's I think I think much more. That's not coming to me tonight, but my response to that is, I think it's much more important that we're focused on where we're at, and what God is doing in our lives already. Like God isn't only trying to do stuff out there. God is, I think my view of God is he is working in the particulars of my life and in the people around me. And I think I want to say, okay, if that from that sort of perspective, I'm in where I'm at because God has placed me there. And so it's not about going somewhere else to do some foreign work, or do God's work for him over here. It's about okay, where
God's already at work.
God's already at work, and it's much more closer to home, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, I don't get to go on mission in like California. But, But yes, it's about like focusing on like actually God's already wherever you are and with you and in you. So there's stuff you can do wherever you are with the people around.
And I think the stuff that you can do is really about just realizing love. Like it's, and it will be relational, like it's all like it will be how I am with you now, James, I guess. Like it's that, what's God doing between us now that's going to be healing both of us.
Just you saying that changes how I feel. Because then that brings me right now into the moment, rather than thinking, oh, what am I going to say next, blah blah blah. What Tom's saying. No, it's not so important. It's just about us connecting. and that's
Yeah.
the key, isn't it? That's the immediacy, the acceptance, the right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good.
I mean, it puts the pressure on, but also it doesn't.
But it also, yeah, it kind of
like-
takes it off, because then we're like, okay, well, that doesn't really matter. That kind of takes away all of the whole sort of, well, we've really got to nail God down into what do we really think of? Where do they fit? Do they fit into this box? Or doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that it is about like the connection, about the relationship, about the exactly what's happening right now. And I think that maybe that's what ayahuasca does for people, is it gets them to relate on an immediate, right now level. And it kind of feels like a bit scary, or can feel really scary, because it's like, oh, drugs are bad, and oh, it's messing with your mind, and that's like you don't know what it's doing. But at the same time, I just think that's quite that's just where we come from. That's like an hour. I was always taught as a kid, drugs are bad, don't do drugs, blah blah blah. Like there were various different things that kind of fed into that from my parents' own experiences, that meant that's why I was brought up that way. And then, like, obviously in my youth, I did experiment with various different things. I never managed to try ayahuasca. I'd never heard of it. And as I say, I think the whole idea behind it is that you do it with people who guide you through the experience. So it's in like a safe place. It's like a shamanistic ritual.
It sounds like a ritual.
Yeah, it's shamanistic. I'm fairly certain it's in Peru. Don't quote me on that, but I think it is. I'm sure, like, yeah, people know, we can always investigate. Anyway, and the idea is you drink this brew, this tea made with whatever the plant is that it comes from, and it gives you like crazy sort of visions and visual experiences, and in that time you get like this real deep connected sense of, I don't know, life, I suppose, God, I suppose, like self, nature, all of that sort of stuff. Again, I'm only getting this from like the one account that I've heard, but I had heard of it and of other like people saying having similar experiences. So there's all sorts of, unresearched in my head. I haven't researched it, but I'm assuming there's lots of people who've tried it out there. And there seems to be a similar sort of result or experience, or result, I suppose, or outcome that people have had. And that makes me go, oh, okay, they're not like chasing the dragon with it, as it were, which is like where you get a hit and then you're like perpetually trying to recreate that high, because it's not a high that they're getting, it's like a connectivity they're getting, or I don't want to say like an unlocking, but maybe that's the right word or phrase, like a revelation of the connectivity or the connection that is available and there for all of us. Which I think a lot of people already have some kind of inkling of anyway. And so it's maybe just a revelation of something that's the kind of embryonic in people, or kind of just slightly out of focus, and it kind of brings into focus that which isn't quite obvious. So like, as I say, I don't think we need to try the drug to experience that. I think that God can give us that revelation anyway. I don't, I believe that's available for all of us. My thought with it is more that if that helps people to get connected, brilliant. I don't want to like stop people or prevent people from experiencing that. and I think that anything that helps people feel more connected and therefore more loving and therefore more relational to one another and more relational to themselves and to nature, whether or not in that experience there is an ideation of God, but that they feel more connected on the whole, surely that's a good thing. And anything that assists people in that. So whatever spirituality that they follow, whatever kind of experience they follow, or upbringing that they've had, or sort of like psychological training that they've had. I don't know. You know, there's so many different things that we can explore and be involved in that can help us to try and go, oh, hang on, there's more there. There's like a deep and there's a depth there that we were, we were paddling in the shallows, but we can really dive. You know, there's a whole world to experience. Yeah, I don't know if any of that really makes sense or not, but that's where I landed.
Yeah, no, it did. It reminds me of a conversation I had with someone who I think would call themselves evangelical now, or definitely Christian, but their experience of meeting someone else from who had quite a different spirituality or faith, and seeing the commonalities. And I don't know if it was my reflection on it or if it was their words, but that God is bigger than we maybe imagine, or I think this is definitely my words, that bigger than the boxes we can put him in. And and it it's really what you're saying is really reminding me of I'm reading a biography by Brian Thorne.
Oh yeah.
Who is who was instrumental in bringing person-centered therapy to Britain.
Yes, that's right.
Also ended up as I think a priest.
Yes, he did.
In the Anglican Church
and
in Norwich.
I only have like one real recollection, and that's he got naked with one of his clients. Is that right?
Now, I think you might be right. Yeah, I think you might be right.
It's just the Brian thought, and I'm like, yeah, I remember. And then he was a priest, and then wait, he got naked with someone. but it was completely like, it was not non-sexual. It was completely consensual.
Yeah.
It was very much helping that client become comfortable and okay with themselves.
Yes.
Like it was like totally the right thing to do.
I think you're right.
Any other perspective, you're like, what? He did? What now?
I think you're right.
I think it wasn't helpful either that they were female and he's male presenting. So you're like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, that's fine, right? Sure,
I'd forgotten about that. I'd really forgotten about that. Oh,
sorry, that's derailed.
That's great. And I think it that's really interesting, of like when we get to the immediacy of what's happening between us, like maybe God works outside the boxes that we, maybe that was his participation in God's work.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And
100%.
How I guess when we get to the spontaneous immediacy of what's going on between me and you, whoever the you is, but now it's you, James. Like that may call us into quite unusual things, or things that others would think badly of, or we shouldn't be doing, or
like, oh, well, it's easy to judge, isn't it? It's easy to judge, but until you know, and
I guess maybe the implication of what we said so far is, sin is what happens pretty much most of the time in my life anyway, where I'm not in that immediacy of the moment with another, with thou, if you're thinking about like I thou relationships.
The I thou,
and yeah, how much impinges on that, and I just leap ahead, or I go to the past,
Yeah.
or I think, what's he going to think about this, or all those things. Anyway, Brian Thorne,
Yes. Yeah.
he had a mystical experience when he was about 7, I think, and he was struck by how much he was loved,
Mm.
and from that, the belovedness of all things, or all people at least. And he kind of words it as he at that moment he became kind of an evangelist, but
Yeah.
for like helping people see their belovedness,
Yeah.
their inherent belovedness.
Which is beautiful, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really
Yeah.
beautiful way of, and I guess that was what he was doing in this naked encounter with
Yeah.
somebody else,
I'm
that
sure it was. Yeah. Yeah.
that particular relationship in that moment called for, that was how to help reacquaint someone with their belovedness.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which I quite like that.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
it's a
it feels to,
complete flip, isn't it? Sorry to interrupt you. It's
no,
just a complete flip of like being evangelic about like, you've got to believe, otherwise you're going to die. It's like, no, look, I just want to show you how beautiful you are, how loved you are, how amazing you are. Can I just tell you, like, that this is incredible about, like, you'd say that about somebody like that. It's got a different flavor, a different feel, a different heart behind it, a different spirit behind it, rather than the turn or burn sort of mentality of like that I've experienced and seen and grown up with.
yeah,
It's really nice. Love
mm.
that.
I think we're coming to an end.
We are, yeah. Sorry, I did interrupt you right at the end there. You were mid.
No, I think I was running out then anyway,
Okay.
James. I was glad for the interruption when it
Took
came.
the torch and ran with it.
Yeah, that's it.
That is good, isn't it?
Yeah, James, I'm going to be really taking this idea of the immediacy.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
really stuck with me.
it's like you think of things like mindfulness, the whole bringing yourself into the moment, meditation, all of these different practices and sort of like disciplines that, like, in every faith, right? Come on, that you do them in everything, and there's like all these actions and motions and rituals that we do, which, when we just do them and there's nothing to it, and we don't connect to it, or it doesn't connect us to the now self, then it is empty, isn't it? It's just pointless. You're praying, you're like just saying some words into air. If you're praying and you're getting in touch with the inner life, and that inner life is really not just your inner life, but like the outer life and the connected divinity, you run out of words, really, don't you? But yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah,
I think we've landed somewhere beautiful. It's great.
Yeah, I like it.
Really
I like
good.
that.
Yeah.
Great. So I'm going to go back to sinning now.
Yeah,
because
so
that's where I do most of my life.
we're just very good at that. We're very good at being disconnected. We're very good.
And isn't it funny? Like we're both from traditions where the fact that you sin all the time is taken. Like,
It's just got,
but this
give it.
is and actually this seems to kind of both explode that, in that actually it's far more pervasive than I was realizing, and also release all the shame in that.
Yeah, because you're just like, well, we just can't help it, and like, but God's there and doesn't, like, it's just go. It's okay. I'm still here. I'll wait. Yeah, infinitely patient. Yeah.
Well, thank you, James.
Yeah, thank you, Tom.
Thank you. We'll tune in next time, I guess.
Let's do it.
Great. How do I stop the recording?
Probably the little geometric wizard.
Oh,
Again.
no, hold on. Can I click? Stop recording. There we go.